Hey guys, it's Haley and welcome to another bookish video. Today I'm going to be bringing you my August wrap up. I know y'all have been asking for it. I'm sorry it's a little bit late. Your girl is moving. Your girl is in temporary housing. Your girl has 100 books stacked up against the wall. So filming is a little bit difficult, but here we are finally, and I am so happy to tell you about the 20 books that I read in August. But before we dive into the reviews, I do want to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Skillshare. You guys know I love working with Skillshare, so let me tell you a little bit about them. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for anyone who loves learning and wants to explore their creativity, learn new skills, or invest in themselves for personal growth. Have something specific you're trying to learn? Skillshare is the perfect place to start. From photography, illustration, to graphic design, freelancing, and even more, Skillshare has a ton of classes that will match all of your goals and interests. Here you can see that I bookmarked a ton of classes on marketing. My favorite class that I've been taking lately is Marketing for Therapists and Coaches, How to Find Clients by Giorgio Aprile. And honestly, it is so nice to just get a master class with all of the information right there instead of having to go to so many different avenues. And it's a pretty quick course as well. I love learning new things on Skillshare. So if you have a skill or a talent that you've been wanting to hone, learn more about, and you want to become a member and take in all this new beautiful knowledge on Skillshare, be sure to check out my link down below. The first 1,000 people who click that link down below will get a free month of Skillshare, completely free to explore your passions and learn new things. So thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's wrap up, and let's go ahead and get into the books. Jumping right into stats, I told y'all I read 20 books this month. I don't know what came over me. Your girl was just reading. A lot of these are novellas though, so I have some good horror novella recs for you in this video. As I said, I read 20 books for a total of 6,029 pages, and here is my mood breakdown. We always have dark, tense, and mysterious reads, and you know you gotta have the lighthearted little section to break it up. 3/4 of the books I read this month were fast-paced, with the latter quarter being medium-paced. 45%, so almost half of the books I read were under 300 pages, and 55% were between 300 and 500 pages. All the books I read this month were fiction. Here is my genre breakdown. Of course, we have mostly thriller and horror up at the top. Those are my genres. I also did throw in a couple romance and a couple LGBT books in there. Across all 20 reviews that I gave to all of these books, I had an average rating of 3.41, which is a little bit low. And there is one in there that's kind of ruining the mix a bit, which we will get to. I did have one book this month that I rated 0.25 stars, just 1/4 star. It was that bad, and we will get to it. I read 3 books that I rated 2 stars. I had 1 2.5 star book, 3 3 stars, 4 3.5 stars, 3 4 stars, a 4.5 star, and 4 5-star books. And here is how I read those pages throughout the month. It was honestly pretty consistent throughout the month, except for one weekend where I guess I was just a busy girl and I was not reading at all. All right, that's all my stats. Now let's go ahead and get into the reviews. I know I usually start with my least favorite book and work my way up to my most favorite book. I'm gonna switch it up this month and start at my most favorite book and work my way down to the least favorite books, because y'all, I have some ranting. Okay, I have some ranting that needs to be done, and I know some people don't like that, so you know what? If you don't like it, you can leave, you can skip it. You're not my people. Okay, that's fine. That's okay with me. But we're gonna start with my 5 stars. Starting out on a wonderful note, we have my favorite book of the month, and this might come as a surprise to some people. It is a YA book. When is the last time I enjoyed a YA? I don't know, but I'm absolutely in love with this book, and that is The Mary Shelley Club by Goldie Moldavsky. Oh my God, was this just a love letter to teens who find their comfort in horror movies? Yeah. That is what this book is, and I felt so connected to this book. I felt so nostalgic reading it. It is about this group of kids at an elite private school who have this club called the Mary Shelley Club, and it's basically for horror-obsessed nerds. But these kids are from all different cliques in the school, and they don't talk in the school. It's like a secret society kind of vibe. This does have some good dark academia, good fall vibes, so it's perfect for this current season we're in. And it is about each member of the club executing their fear tests. And I'm not even going to tell you what that is. You have to read to find out. I want to keep it vague, but I do want to let y'all know this is such a good book. I don't want to give away anything, but I want to convince you to read it. Just know the characters are so charming. The whole story just sucks you in. It was such an easy read. Even though this book was almost 500 pages, I read it in a day. I absolutely freaking loved it. If you're a fan of horror movies and you're just, you know, a girl who wears knife earrings on the regular like me, I guarantee you you're gonna love this. You're gonna feel so connected to these characters. And on top of that, there were some scenes that were a little bit scary, you know, not like, oh my God, I'm so scared, but like, ooh, this is some good horror imagery, kind of scary. And the twists and reveals at the end were so good. It felt like classic slasher vibes. Oh my gosh, it was just, I cannot rave enough about the Mary Shelley Club. I'm so excited to read more from this author and see if maybe this is a new favorite YA author for me. Next up in the 5 stars, I have The Family Remains by Lisa Jewell, and this is the sequel to The Family Upstairs. I just featured this in a vlog that I posted a few days ago. It was by far my favorite of that vlog, and probably my favorite 2022 release that I was anticipating, because obviously Blood Sugar, I was not anticipating. I picked it up on a whim, and it is my favorite book of the year. Out of the books that I knew I was going to read in 2022, this is the one that has delivered the most for me. I absolutely loved it. Obviously, I can't give a synopsis, but know that it is the sequel to the culty, fucked up family dynamics that happen in The Family Upstairs. And if you like that one, you're gonna love this one. This one took that story and expanded on it, took it to new heights. I didn't love The Family Upstairs, but you should read it so you can read this one. The next 5-star that I read in August was Dear Laura. This is a super short horror novella, and it is haunting. It is crazy. I absolutely loved it. It was actually quite emotional. I love when a horror story can not just only bring the gore, but also plays with my emotions as well. This story follows Laura, who loses her boyfriend, the love of her life, her best friend, really, really young. And then she gets a letter in the mail saying,
I know where your boyfriend is, and I will tell you and give you little clues that lead you to him if you do this and this and this and this and this.
And all of these tasks that this man is asking her for get exceedingly more and more intense, more and more disturbing, and she doesn't even know if this is the real killer slash kidnapper of her boyfriend, or if this is just some fucked up pervert who is trying to play on this girl who is stricken by grief. And this has gone on for years and years and years. Now Laura is like a full-grown adult woman, and she is still in this madman's trap, trying to put all the pieces together that he's dropped along the way and find her boyfriend, whether he's alive or it's just his remains that she is tracking down. It is heartbreaking to hear about the way Laura blames herself for her boyfriend's disappearance and just hearing about their bond, oh my God, it just like almost makes me want to cry now thinking about it, because she would have done anything, even to find his body and give his parents peace. Like, oh my God, the things that she does, it is just so disturbing. It's so crazy. It's short and it's a wild ride. If this sounds like anything you're interested in, if you like serial killers and you can handle that triggering kind of content in your horror, definitely try this one out. Also, it is on Kindle Unlimited, so it's free if you subscribe. And my last 5-star book of August was True Crime, another super short horror novella on Kindle Unlimited. I was just looking for these short horror stories to get me in the fall mood, and this one did not disappoint at all. It follows 2 siblings who are in this very abusive home situation, and they end up retaliating on their family and then going on the run, basically on this killing spree. And our main character is obsessed with death. She thinks she is a little tiny serial killer and she has thoughts about it. She doesn't know if it's a good thing because, you know, it comes from trauma and being abused her whole life and wanting revenge. But she also could think, you know, maybe it's a bad thing to want to kill people. And being in her head was just so interesting. We follow her as she's growing up, the aftermath of this killing spree, all of that. It feels very, I don't know, old isn't the right word, but the book that it reminded me of the most, just like on the vibes alone, was In Cold Blood by Truman Capote, which is a very classic serial killer literature book. I don't know, it's like a literary horror almost. I remember that being the one book in school that I just absolutely loved reading, and those vibes were totally brought back to this book. It's like a rural country setting. We're in the mind of 2 serial killers who are on the road together on this killing spree. It is just such a masterpiece. It is so well done and so innovative and interesting, being in the mind of this little girl who has been through so much and is this really unlikable but somehow sympathetic character was so super interesting. I also had a 4.5-star book in the month of August, which is For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. I did a taste test vlog reading 2 Samantha Downing books just to see kind of how I felt about her writing and her books as a whole. So if you missed that, I will link it up above and down below in the description so you can hear full thoughts and live reactions of me reading this book. But to keep it short, I absolutely loved it. There were a few things that I was like, it just didn't give me that 5-star feeling, but for the most part, I loved this book. We are in the mind of killer Professor Teddy, who works at this elite private school. Again, I was loving the dark academia vibes this month. And he gives these snotty little entitled children exactly what they deserve. But something goes wrong when one of his intended victims gets switched out with someone who didn't quite deserve the punishment that got doled out to them. Moving into my 4-star books. First up, we have my Pretty Girl book club pick for this past month. If you're wondering what the Pretty Girl Book Club is, it is my book club that I host over on Patreon. You can join at any time and read along with us. I always have that link down below to join my Patreon. And the book we read in the month of August is The Stranger in the Mirror by Liv Constantine. And we all really loved this book. I had never seen like hype and great reviews for this one, but we all really ended up enjoying it. It is kind of like an amnesia trope kind of thriller where this woman wakes up on the side of the road and she's like,
what's happening? Who am I?
She literally knows nothing about herself or her past. She knows how to be a human and things, like how the world works, but she doesn't know any personal information about herself. So she gets picked up by a trucker who helps her rebuild her life, and she just goes from there. She lives this completely different life with a completely different name, can't find any information about her life before, and just completely starts over. But things go a little bit off the rails when someone from her past life from before recognizes her and tries to pull her back into her old life. This one was just so much fun. Okay, there are plot holes. It's not too deep. This is not one that you're going to think about deeply. There's no meaning of life. There's no themes. There's no messages. This is just a good, fun time. If you want crazy twists that keep you on the edge of your seat, read this book, but don't think about it too much, okay? That's how you can enjoy it the best. Next up, I want to talk about The Groomer by John Athan. This was my first book from this author, and I know it was raved about in the extreme horror community. I did end up really, really liking it. I thought the writing style was great. I thought the gore was good. I thought the story was amazingly crafted, okay? The story and all of that blew me away. The characters were very sympathetic as well. I am just bummed that this one did not give me the 5-star feeling. I wanted to join the club with everybody who's obsessed with this book. I really love it. Okay, I think it's great. It just wasn't there for me. I should probably tell you what this book is about before I go any further into my review. Basically, this book is about the human trafficking of children. Yeah. We follow both sides of this scenario. The people who run the human trafficking operations and groom these children in order to kidnap them. And then we also follow the families of the missing children who are frantically looking for their child. You really get to see all sides of the situation. It is heart pumping. It is terrifying to imagine yourself as anyone in any part of this web of situations is horrifying. The issues that I had with this book are, number one, there were some very oddly placed scenes within the structure of the novel. There were a couple times when we were introduced to characters and I read for about 10 or 15 minutes getting to know them. And then afterwards, I was like, wait, are we gonna go back to that character? And I just realized that there were these one-off chapters of stories from just random people that were somehow connected that we would just never revisit. And I thought that just didn't add much to the story. It was honestly really confusing why that was there. That could have been an offshoot, a sequel, a novella, whatever. I don't think it had a place in this story though. It really just distracted from the main plot. And I don't think it went far enough. I'm sorry. This is extreme horror and a lot of the gore took place off page and there was not too much detail involved. It was like
okay, they removed the limb. Okay, the blood is squirting.
Like, I'm gonna need a little bit more than that. And of course that is personal preference as well. I have a really high tolerance for gore. I love intense, descriptive gore. So other people might think this is really intense and this is way more than enough. But for me personally, I would have liked a little bit more, especially if you're going to call yourself extreme. Something, however, that I've learned about myself as I started writing my first extreme horror book, which don't expect it to come out, okay? Listen, we are in introductory phases. I've never written anything before, so I'm just playing around here. But something I've learned about myself is I tend to over-describe in my own writing. Like, if we talk about blood spurting, there's going to be 18 metaphors and 100 different ways that I'm going to tell you how this blood is spurting. So that's how I like to write and read about those type of things. And this book was just, I guess, a little too straightforward for my taste. But if you're into extreme horror and this sounds like a synopsis you would enjoy, definitely read it. It is worth a read. And the last 4-star book I want to tell you about is My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. This book is part cozy mystery, part summer vacation romance about a cute little teacher girl who goes on vacation with her brother. They have this summer getaway, but as soon as they get to their Airbnb, they realize there's a dead body in there. So they call in people to investigate, and one of the people that comes in is a bounty hunter. And our main character is all up in his business, impeding his investigation and wanting to be a little Nancy Drew. They don't seem like they would be a good match because it is very grumpy sunshine vibes, but they end up, striking up a romance and solving a mystery. For me, I thought the mystery aspect was really, really weak. It did not hold my attention at all, and I thought it was kind of boring, especially because I am a really big fan of the thriller mystery genre. So when that part didn't come through, it was just really disappointing for me. I had to look at this book as just a romance when I was rating it, and for the spicy scenes alone, I'm gonna give it a 4-star. I think if you go into this one not taking it too seriously, I read this one drunk in the pool at a resort, you're gonna have a 4-star time. But I think if I was reading this sober and really trying to enjoy it, I probably would have DNF'd it. You know, I just finished it because I was in the pool floating around with nothing better to do, but on reflection, I don't think this book is that great, if I'm being honest. And I know a lot of people have big issues with the male love interest being very possessive, being a little bit too grumpy on the grumpy sunshine spectrum. So keep that in mind if you go in. But from my personal reading experience, I got on my phone right after I finished. I said, at the swim up bar, I leaned over, I said, you know what, Storygraph, we're giving this 4 stars. So that's what I did. Moving on to 3.5 star books. First, we have Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This is another one that I just talked about in my most recent vlog. Again, I will link it everywhere. I really, really enjoyed this one. I wanted to like it more than I actually did. The writing was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. If you took some quotes from these books and just like posted them without saying where it was from, you would have the girlies out here thinking this was Sally Rooney, okay? The writing was gorgina. But the actual thriller plot, for me, I predicted 2 of the major reveals, and then the big, huge, massive twist at the end, I didn't predict it, but it didn't hit for me. It wasn't what I was looking for, it wasn't what I wanted, and it kind of ruined the story a little bit. But if you like atmospheric, knives out situation where all of this big family is in an isolated house that's rainy and gloomy, and they're all getting picked off one by one, it's definitely worth a read. I think there's some people who are gonna love, love, love this, die for it, give it 5 stars. But I think there's also room for people to not enjoy this, so just know that before going in. Next up, we have The Summer I Turned Pretty. I also rated this first book in this trilogy 3.5 out of 5 stars. You know, if I would have read this first book in the series a decade ago, oh my God, my little 14-year-old heart would have loved it. I would have been in it. It didn't hit that way for me. Now, I wasn't absolutely obsessed, but it was a quick read. It was summer vibes. It was YA romance. It was a fun time. If you don't know what these books are about, they follow a love triangle between our main character, Belly, and these 2 boys that are close family friends. She basically grew up with them. They're basically her brothers, but she's having vibes with both of them all summer. For me, I'm Team Jeremiah, personally. And I know that's going to be hotly contested in the comments. I want to know if you're Team Conrad, Team Jeremiah. So I bought in, okay? I bought into the lore, to the appeal of Summer I Turned Pretty. However, I highly, highly recommend the show over the books. They're cute, they're fun, they're a little bit dissociative in the way that romance can be. But yeah, it was fine. It was fine. It was cute. It was fun. Next up, we have another horror novella. We had to remove this post. Okay. This one was hard. This one was hard for me. This one was very difficult for me to read, and to even talk about it is difficult because I actually knew someone. I met someone in a professional context who had the job that is talked about in this book. This book is all about content reviewers, okay? People who work at YouTube and Facebook and TikTok, and every time somebody flags a video, they have to watch it and say if it should be removed or if it should stay up, which means these people, for their job, are just watching all day long horrifying, traumatic content. It's what they do for a living, and it's a very difficult job. I loved the mental health representation in here, the person that I knew who had this job. I know it was extremely hard for them and there was a lot of trauma, so I don't want to minimize this experience, but I don't think this book did too great of a job expressing the horror, okay? I think the first part of the book really captured the depth of how difficult this job can be and how deeply it can affect you, but I think it fell off in the last half. Something wasn't clicking, okay? Something went off the rails. There was just something that I didn't love about the second half. And in the moment after I read it, I think I really wanted to like the second half, so I did rate it 4 stars. But I had to take a half a star off the more that I thought about it, because number one, the ending was super, super abrupt. But number two, it just went off from what I loved so much about the first half. There's also an LGBTQ romance in here that turns kind of toxic, kind of abusive, and there's a lot of queer people in this story. But there was also a lot of weird homophobia in this story. And not just because of the internalized homophobia within the relationship, and not just because of the content on, websites that can be homophobic, but just weirdness between the characters and the character dynamics. So the more I thought about it, the lower my rating became. I'm just gonna land at a 3.5 because I like the concept, I like the mental health rep, and I like the first half, but everything else, All right, next up we have The Slob by Erin Beauregard. This one is also tough. I feel like when I have a tough book, I just go ahead and rate it 3.5. When there's a lot that I like about a book and a lot that I don't like, we just end on a 3.5. I don't know how we get there, but that is what that rating means for me. Because 3 feels very average, and I don't want to give these books that I really liked a lot of things a 3, but I can't give it a 4. You know what I mean? And The Slob was right in there, okay? The Slob is about a woman who grows up in an extremely dirty, extremely abusive, extremely fucked up family dynamic kind of home. And so when she grows up and becomes a full-grown woman, she's obsessed with cleaning. Cleaning is what gives her power and control over her life. She turned around her traumatic situation and completely built this life for herself. And she's a door-to-door vacuum cleaner saleswoman, which I just think is adorable and really matches the background, connects with everything for this character. Absolutely love this character. And one of the houses that she tries to knock and sell a vacuum at belongs to the Slob. So she's like, boom, easiest sale of all time. Here we go. This man's house is disgusting. We finna sell the fuck out of this vacuum. Little does she know, the Slob is going to make a bigger mess than she already encountered when she walked in the door, because he is not going to let her leave. And the story goes from there. This is the type of gore I'm talking about when I say I want gore, I want it descriptive, and I want it extreme. If you're gonna call yourself extreme horror, this is the level of gore that I expect. I loved the character development of our main character. I loved the gore. Oh my God, the horror was just, it was making me cringe. I was like shaking in my boots. It was so good. I also loved the talk about trauma and all of the mental health content in here. I thought it was connected to the character and to the horror masterfully well. I also loved the quirky humor that was used throughout the book. I thought it was really funny, and it took away a little bit from the gore and disgust, so that didn't get so heavy. But there were also quite a few things that I did not enjoy about this book. The writing had a really overwritten quality to it, and it really disturbed the fluency of the book. It did not flow because the metaphors and the alliteration especially sometimes felt really forced. Not every SAT word needs to be in your horror book. Like, we're totally good without all of that. And the ending, in my opinion, took a very beautifully done, very meaningful horror story and undermined it. Okay, you develop this wonderful character and this amazingly done gore, and then you just undermine it and make a mockery of it with this ending, I was thrown for a loop. It went full throttle into ridiculous humor, like 12-year-old boy humor that was problematic and included offensive stereotyping of gay people and of the Asian community. And the very last sentence of the book just so obviously set it up for a sequel. The last 2 chapters, if you would have just chopped those, Mr. Aaron Beauregard, God, I would have loved this book. It would have been a 5-star. But those 2 chapters at the end just, it felt like he didn't know how to end it, and he just fucking put his foot in his mouth at the very end. Overall, I feel like the good outweighs the bad. And if you're a fan of splatterpunk, I think you're gonna like this one. But for me, there were just some unavoidable issues here. And stay tuned because I do have thoughts on the sequel as well. Now we're moving into 3-star books. First of which is Girl Forgotten by Karen Slaughter. This was such a letdown for me. Y'all know I love Karen Slaughter. She is my queen. Pretty Girls is my favorite book ever written. This, though, I didn't love. I know it was written well, but for me, it didn't work out. I didn't love it. I thought it was boring. I didn't love the characters, so I'm sorry. This is a sequel to Pieces of Her by Karen Slaughter, which I also didn't love. These are the only 2 books that I have not liked out of all of the dozens of Karen Slaughter books that I've read. This one and Pieces of Her are the 2 that just did not work for me. If you want full thoughts and explanations on why, you can watch the vlog. I have a whole talk about it. But yeah, this one was a big, big disappointment. I hate that I rated a Karen Slaughter 3 stars. And it isn't even bad. Like, that isn't even a bad rating. It was just so boring and I didn't connect to it. I'm sorry, Karen. I'm so sorry. Next up, we have It's Not Summer Without You. This is the second book in the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy by Jenny Han. And these just kept getting worse for me, okay? The second one was a 3, okay? It was just there. It was just normal. It was just cute and fun, but it wasn't as cute and fun as the first one because it was just so convoluted, okay? She was going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Jeremiah Conrad, Jeremiah Conrad, Jeremiah Conrad. And at one point, I was exhausted. I was like,
listen, I'm having cute little summer fun, but you're gonna need to make a choice, girl, because I am not on board with the waffling.
So that's pretty much how I felt about that. And my last 3-star book that I read in August was Other People's Clothes. And I listened to this one on audio because it had been getting so much hype. When my library hold came in, I was so excited for this one. It's about toxic female friendship and this girl who is emerging into her 20s and basically just trying to figure out who she is, what she's doing. And her roommate travel abroad to somewhere in like
Germany, I believe. Germany, Amsterdam, fucking Russia, I don't know, somewhere over there.
Eastern Europe vibes. And when they go there, they move into this beautiful apartment that they rent for dirt cheap from this author, this famous author. And they have a sneaking suspicion that the author is spying on them. Their landlord, they think she's spying and writing her next novel about them. So as you can imagine, that really screws with our main character's perception of herself. She's constantly wondering, how am I coming across to this woman? How is this story going to be written? Is she even writing the story about us? And the relationship between the roommates continually gets more and more toxic. I thought it was a really interesting book, but this one also had the case of just being really overwritten. I swear I would be listening to the audio for 20 minutes and all of a sudden check in with myself and be like,
nothing has happened. The past 20 minutes, nothing has happened at all. We've just been hearing about like somebody's shoe collection in their closet.
It just had that pretentious writing style that I do not connect with, that made the book really average to me. And the sad thing is, this plot was a wonderful concept and a great idea. And honestly, it was executed really well, just the way that the plot was laid out. But if it would have been less pretentious and less overwritten, it would have been really wonderful. I think there's just this trend in especially literary fiction books recently where the more pretentious, the better. And people like to feel smart when they're reading. For me, I don't like to waste my time on boring shit, okay? I don't care how smart and how literary some writing is. If I'm not having a good time, it's not worth it. I read for fun, okay? This is not a college course. I'm out of grad school and I'm never going back there. So, I just want to read for fun. And this wasn't that fun, even though it could have been a really, really great story. Next up, I did have a 2.5 star book this month, and that is Reckless Girls by Rachel Hawkins. Now, I had heard this is an Agatha Christie retelling. Well, of course that wasn't fucking true, because every comparison to Agatha Christie, if a book is compared to Agatha Christie, you can pretty much count on the fact that number one, it's not gonna be anything like Agatha Christie, and number two, it's probably gonna be bad. This one was bad. It wasn't like atrociously bad, but it definitely wasn't good, which is why I gave it right in the middle, a 2.5. The execution was fine. You know, the story didn't move as quickly as I would want it to. It was about a bunch of people who travel to this maybe haunted island with all this sketchy history and lore around it, and people start dying. My issue was, people didn't start dying until maybe about 50 pages from the end. So I read 200 some pages of just buildup that was pretty boring and added almost nothing to my enjoyment or the development of the characters. It was just like,
every day we would lay on the beach and sit with these rich people and drink their champagne, and this person was fucking this person, and this person was cheating on this person, and then da-da.
And I was like, please, God, when is one of these idiots gonna keel over? Because I need it. And once it all started happening, I got whiplash. It was like boom, 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 boom. This person's dead, now this person, now this person, now this person. And if that would have just been spread out throughout the novel, I feel like I would have enjoyed it so much better. So yeah, this one you can definitely skip. It did have fun summer vibes, and I liked the extra inclusion of like the lore and the haunting bit of this island, but execution, not on 100. Now let's talk about my 2-star books. I hope I don't make anyone mad. First up, we have Last to Vanish by Megan Miranda. This was also in the new release vlog. Go watch that for the full tea. For me, this was boring as shit, okay? And I'm not talking about just Reckless Girls boring. This was like, I was falling asleep. This was like, my audio was on 3 times speed and my mind was still wandering, okay? Nothing happens. The whole book, nothing happens. And I don't care about what was happening, and I don't care about the characters. So really, even if something was happening, nothing was happening. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah. Please don't read this. Boring, boring, boring. The vibes were there, okay? It was in like the trails of Colorado, the mountains, which is great and fun and beautiful and atmospheric. But when no one is getting found, because the whole thing is about like discovering what's happening to these disappeared people, when you're not actually discovering what's happening, it's not that interesting. Moving on. We have We'll Always Have the Summer by Jenny Han. Last time I'm going to hold up this big chunk of a book. This is the last book in the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. And y'all, this series just really went downhill. You know, I feel like if there was one book, just the one book, oh my God, I get it. I get why it's a phenomenon. The third book, she does in fact make her choice, okay? The love triangle is resolved. We know who she picks. But the journey to get there, my entire Storygraph review was just how bizarre. That's the best word I can use to describe this last book in the trilogy, is it was fucking bizarre. It was bizarre. It was out of nowhere. I'm like, wait, what? Wait, what? We're jumping to this? And I also read this when I was drunk, and I was just like laughing. I was literally in public by myself at a pool, drunk, laughing to myself. Like, what is happening? What is actually happening in this book? I could not believe this like cutesy little YA series took such a turn. It was odd. It was weird. If you're gonna read this, first of all, don't just watch the show. It's really cute. But if you are going to read this, just stop at the first one. You don't need to know how it works out. It's not worth it. And my last 2-star book is He Started It by Samantha Downing. This was the other book that I read for the Samantha Downing taste test video. And unfortunately, this one just really did not work for me. It's following this group of siblings, these siblings who their grandfather is dying. He just died. And he tells them to get their inheritance, they have to go recreate this road trip from their childhood together again. They went on this road trip with him like years before when they were kids, and to collect on the millions of dollars that he's left them, he wants them to like come back together and do this road trip again. And shady things come up along the way. There's fucked up family dynamics. And that was the only part that I really enjoyed, was the family dynamics, the sibling conversation, stuff like that. I thought it was really interesting, but everything else, it didn't work out. I think the execution was just not there for me. It didn't work for me. And I know this one has worked for a lot of people. I know this is one that people love and that is so popular. For me, it's a no. I got the feeling at the end of the whiplash feeling, okay? This was a whiplash thriller where there's no twists the entire book, and I'm freaking waiting for a twist that's gonna shock me. And then at the end, it was like 8 twists back to back, and she didn't even give me time to process the first one before the next one was hitting. So I ended up just getting overwhelmed and feeling like it was a lazy choice. Why are you giving me whiplash? Just give me twists that are thought out and give me time to process them, and then end the book on something shocking. You don't have to do what you did, which was overdo it. It felt forced. I didn't love it. It didn't work. Now we're here at the last book, okay? We're here at the last book of the month. Book number 20. I rated this book
0.25 out of 5 stars. 0.25 out of 5 stars, okay?
I have never rated a book this low. Oh God. I just know the incels are gonna come for me. I just know my comments are gonna be filled with incel comments. Sir, let me just stop you right now. Hey, hi. Are you an extreme horror bro? Are you an incel? Are you a fucking edgelord? Are you watching these videos because it's like, no way a chick knows about extreme horror? Okay, I'm gonna stop you right here. Buddy, don't comment. You need to just leave now. This isn't a safe space for you. You will be triggered. You will turn into a little baby snowflake if you sit around here with me in this time. So I'm going to need you to remove yourself and not leave a nasty comment on this video. All right, now that that's out of the way, let me go ahead and tell you about the worst book that I've read this month and maybe ever, and that is Son of the Slob by Erin Beauregard. Look familiar? Yeah, this is the sequel to The Slob, which I thought was really well done, okay? The ending, we don't need to talk about it. If we don't look at that, this is some of the best gore I've ever read. The sequel, you should have left it in the drafts, Erin. You should have left it in the motherfucking drafts. I don't know why you brought this thing to the world, but it needs to be deleted. I buddy read this with one of my friends here on BookTube, and she bought the book, obviously, and then she returned it. After she read it, she fully read it and returned it because she said, this is no, I'm not spending money on this. It's not happening. And I respect her for that 1,000,000%, because this book basically takes the Slob's son. The Slob was the villain in the last book. His son comes up and is yet again terrorizing our main character, this sweet little baby angel who's just trying to survive from her trauma. And her story was developed so well in the first book. The second book, basically all that beautiful character development gets shat on. It was thrown out the window. Everything I knew about her was forgotten. And she basically, she just got fucked. It's like the author did not care about this character that he crafted and that the readers loved so much, which was why The Slob was so popular. It was so obvious that this was just shoddily written way too fast, and it was a freaking cash grab. Like, it was a freaking cash grab, okay? Like, there was nothing about this book that said intentional at all. Even the gore in this book was not up to par, because I know Aaron Beauregard can write some badass gore because he did in the first one. This one, I had major issues with. It was genuinely so bad. Y'all know me. I love splatterpunk. I love horror. I love extreme horror. That's the only horror that gets me good. So it was not the extreme disgust and offensive content and whatever that was in here that was off-putting to me at all. That's not why I'm giving this book such a bad review. It was the piss poor writing style, the lazy and confused plot, and the obvious money grab that was the sequel that went nowhere, that basically took the first book that everybody liked and shat on it. Before I get into like some serious parts of why I didn't like this book, I want to have a little laugh. I'm just gonna read a couple quotes to you guys that I highlighted so you can understand what I mean by the writing style. It was just so overwritten, and I love alliteration, okay? I love some good alliteration, especially in horror when there's like descriptions of gore that are alliterative. I love that. In this one though, it was so distracting. It took me out of the book multiple times to the point where I started highlighting it.
He looked snake-like in appearance due to his God-given, particularly pokey teeth.
Give me a motherfucking break.
The fractures in the foundation served as the crux of my destruction.
If we would have left it there, that's a beautiful sentence. But it had to be
destruction and downfall.
Means the same thing. You didn't need to use the two words. You already had alliteration earlier in the sentence. You didn't need destruction and downfall.
The blurry, bizarre man.
Huh? That doesn't even sound pleasing to the ear.
He felt an evil enlightenment caress the cockles.
No. It's too much. Why the two in a row?
The massive maniac leaned over.
It's just not the right word, okay?
Misshapen misfits.
Misshapen misfits. Misshapen misfits. There's two miss. Do you see what I mean? How it just like takes you out of the story? How it's just like, that sentence doesn't sound right. I'll read one more, okay?
Appearing mentally mutant in nature.
There's so, like, I know what he's trying to say, and there are so many other ways that could have been said. Like, why was that the choice? Choices were made. Not good ones, in my opinion. So I hope you got a good laugh out of that and you understand what I mean by the writing style. But here's the other issue that I had that really brought this rating down big time. Because if it's just what I talked about, okay, I would have given it a 1 star. I'm not going to insult it and bring it down to a 1/4 star, but listen. When you are not a Black person, you do not put the N-word in your book. What is this? Fucking 8th grade English class where the teacher's opening the book and saying, well, I don't know. I grew up in Texas. I grew up in the South, and teachers growing up in middle school would like say the N-word aloud as they were reading from a white author's book. And that was just really jarring to me. And that was the vibe that I got from this book, because this author, who is not a Black person, continually put the N-word in the book. What's the deal? What's the deal? What's the deal? Inappropriate, disgusting. And I don't see anybody saying that. I don't see anybody dragging this man for that. And I understand this is not offensive to me, okay? I'm not a Black person, but listen, I want to amplify Black voices and Black reviewers that were lost in the sea of good reviews for this book that were saying, I saw 2 reviews that mentioned the N-word. And I believe they were both Black reviewers. So I want to echo what they have already said. And I also want to be a good fucking ally, okay? And being an ally is not letting this shit slide. White people, y'all have to keep other white people in check. And that's what I'm trying to do with this, okay? I'm not trying to cancel him. I'm not trying to drag him to filth and burn him at the stake. Like, no. But we do need to call out this behavior. So that's that on that. And there was also some very weird sexualization of children in this book. Listen, I understand it's extreme horror. It's supposed to disgust you. It's supposed to be gross. I've read stuff about baby death and baby SA and all of these things. And that's not what I'm critiquing, because it is extreme horror and I've enjoyed books that have that content. This is the sexual description of a child that seems like it's coming from the author's mind, and not other characters in the book, if that makes sense. And I don't like that, okay? This author in this book is giving me bad vibes with the racism and with the discussions of sexual things around children. So it just gave me overall bad vibes. I don't think I will read from this author again. I do have a couple of his books on my TBR that I was looking forward to reading, but this just put an extremely bad taste in my mouth. And after the last 2 chapters of the original The Slob, I was like, you know, maybe I'm just being too sensitive. Maybe, you know, it wasn't offensive or it was just like extreme horror and it was bordering on that and it triggered me or something. No, after reading the sequel, I know I was right. I know I should trust my gut. This man, something about him is problematic and I don't enjoy reading from him. So that is my scathing review. Hopefully I don't get burned at the stake by the fucking incels. That is everything that I read in the month of August. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you again to Skillshare for sponsoring this wrap up. Don't forget to click that link down below. The first 1,000 people get a free month of Skillshare. And I will see you in my next video. If you haven't liked this video yet and you like to hear me drag the incels, give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Don't forget to go to therapy and read a book this week, and I will see you next time. Bye!